I have a theory about Shannon Sharpe, and mornings like this one, and the theory is that Shannon is physically incapable of hiding the fact that he has something when he has something. He tries. He absolutely tries. He comes in with the intention of maintaining the standard composure, of letting the show build naturally to the moment rather than telegraphing it from the opening second. But there is a quality to him, a brightness, a specific aliveness in how he holds himself when he is carrying information he is about to deploy, that bleeds through the professional composure no matter how hard he works to contain it. I saw it this morning the moment the broadcast began, before he had said a word, before the segment had been introduced. Just Shannon at the desk, and the quality of how he was sitting, and the knowledge in my bones that whatever was coming was going to be significant. He opened the show by saying clearly and directly, and without any of the usual warm-up energy, that he had information that was going to force Stephen A. Smith to publicly account for everything he had said about the New York Knicks in the past several weeks. He said it with the flat certainty of a man delivering a statement of fact rather than initiating a debate. He was not asking, he was not inviting, he was announcing, "Hey, what's up everyone, real quick before we get into everything." That like button is literally what determines if this reaches hundreds or thousands of fans. Takes 1 second, but makes a huge impact on the channel's growth. Just smash that like button right now. It's the easiest thing you can do, but honestly the biggest way to support this content. Every single like pushes this further, so hit it now. Stephen A. responded with the full arsenal. He talked about his Knicks analysis, the roster construction questions, the organizational priorities, the specific reasons he had said what he said about New York's capacity to attract a player of LaMelo Ball's profile. And he defended every piece of it with the confidence of someone who has reviewed their position and found it sound. He said it was impossible that Shannon had information that could invalidate what he had said, because what he had said had been based on real intelligence and real analysis and real understanding of how the league actually operated. And then he committed to the thing that sealed his fate, because Stephen A. always commits to the thing that seals his fate, because committing is part of who he is. He said, "If you have something that proves I was wrong about the New York Knicks, I will resign from this show on the spot, live, right now." Shannon looked at Molly. The smile was already there, had been there since the first second of the broadcast, and now it had the specific quality of something that no longer needed to be held back. He said, "Roll the tape." The clip was from 17 days prior, Stephen A. at this desk saying with the specific and unambiguous language that leaves no interpretive refuge later that the New York Knicks were not positioned to attract a player of LaMelo Ball's caliber, that the fit was wrong, that the organizational context did not align with what LaMelo would need to continue his development at the trajectory his talent deserved, and that anyone suggesting otherwise was engaging in fan fiction rather than analysis. He used the word never, in context, clearly. Surrounded by supporting argument that made the absoluteness of it unmistakable. The clip ended. Shannon said, "My sources have confirmed that LaMelo Ball is finalizing a move to the New York Knicks. The deal is as close to done as deals get before the paperwork is signed." The camera found Stephen A.'s face, and this is the part of this morning that I cannot stop replaying, the part that made me put down everything I was doing and sit completely still in front of the television. For 5 full seconds, I counted them because I was so aware that I was watching something unusual that I needed to mark it. Stephen A. Smith's face was not performing anything. It was not doing the theatrical surprise routine or the dismissive headshake or the confident reconfiguration that precedes a counter argument. It was a face receiving information, real information, information that had just made contact with something real. The silence from Stephen A. Smith, across those 5 seconds of live television, was louder than most things I have heard on that show in years. Then the machinery restarted, and this is where the next 40 minutes became some of the most genuinely entertaining and genuinely substantive sports media I have consumed in recent memory, because what happened was not simple defeat followed by simple admission. It was Stephen A. Smith applying his very real intelligence to the extremely difficult problem of navigating between what the tape showed, what Shannon had confirmed, and what remained of his analytical credibility, all in real time, on live television, with millions of people watching and Shannon Sharpe refusing to give him any clear exits. He started with framing. He said any statement about an NBA transaction had to be understood against the information landscape at the time of the statement, and that 2 weeks ago the information landscape genuinely did not suggest this development was coming. He made this argument with real confidence because it is not a bad argument. The circumstances do change, and analysis made in one information context is not automatically wrong when the information context changes. He made it sound reasonable. Shannon said, "You said never." 3 seconds of silence from Stephen A. He tried the rhetorical device defense, the argument that never in the context of sports analysis is emphatic language rather than literal prediction, that the sophisticated listener understands the difference, that holding him to the literal meaning of never was a mischaracterization of how professional media debate operates. He made this argument quickly and fluently, and for a moment I thought it was going to find some traction. Shannon said, "Molly, is that what you heard? Did it sound like emphasis or did it sound like a prediction?" Molly, who has been doing this long enough to know exactly when to give a direct answer, said, "It sounded like a prediction to me." Stephen A. escalated. He went into the basketball analysis. If LaMelo is going to the Knicks, here is why it makes sense. Here is the fit with Jalen Brunson. Here is the offensive dimension. Here is the market argument. He built a case for the acquisition with real substance, partly because he is good at this, and partly because building the case for why it was smart had the effect of subtly suggesting that maybe he had understood it all along and the clip had been taken out of context. He was threading a needle between being wrong and being misunderstood, and he was doing it with impressive technical skill. Shannon said, "Stephen A., I appreciate the analysis, but I want to ask you something directly. 2 weeks ago, you said the Knicks would never attract LaMelo Ball. Today, my sources say they have attracted LaMelo Ball. Were you right or were you wrong?" The pause, the real pause. The one that lasted long enough for everyone in the studio to understand that what came next was not going to be a deflection. And then Stephen A. said, "I was wrong about this specific prediction." He said it the way a person says something that is genuinely costly, not with drama, not with self-flagellation, but with the specific quality of honesty that only appears when someone decides to just tell the truth instead of continuing to defend a position that cannot be defended. Shannon said, "Say it one more time," and Stephen A. Smith, for the second time in 30 seconds, said, "I was wrong." He said it looking directly at Shannon. Shannon nodded. Molly smiled in the way she smiles when a segment has gone somewhere she did not expect, and she is glad it did. And the crew behind the cameras erupted in the way they erupt when they have been watching something extraordinary for 40 minutes and have finally been given permission to react. Let me give you the real basketball analysis now, because LaMelo Ball to the New York Knicks is a genuine story with real substance and real complexity, and it deserves to be taken seriously as a basketball event rather than only as a television event. LaMelo Ball in New York is simultaneously one of the most compelling offensive constructions imaginable and one of the most genuinely debatable roster decisions in the league, and both of those things are true at the same time and are what make it worth talking about beyond the drama. Start with the offensive case, because the offensive case is extraordinary. Jalen Brunson is one of the best point guards in basketball. A player whose ability to manufacture offense, draw fouls, and make decisions at speed has made him the engine of a Knicks team that has become genuinely dangerous in the last 3 seasons. The question that every serious analyst has been asking about the Knicks for 2 years is what happens when the defense figures Brunson out completely, when the adjustments are so comprehensive and the defensive attention is so total that the offense needs a second creator to keep it from becoming predictable. LaMelo Ball is the specific answer to that question in a way that almost no other available player is, because his creation ability is not a version of Brunson's creation ability, but a genuinely different mode of offensive generation, where Brunson creates through physical precision, footwork, body control, foul drawing intelligence. LaMelo creates through improvisational unpredictability, through the kind of playmaking that happens before the defense has had time to read what is coming. 2 different kinds of offense, operating simultaneously, requiring the defense to solve 2 genuinely different problems at the same time. That is not a marginal upgrade. That is a structural transformation of how the Knicks offense works and what it is capable of. The Madison Square Garden dimension is real, and it is not trivial. New York is the media capital of professional basketball in a way that no other city quite matches, and MSG specifically has a gravitational pull on the most visible, most personality-driven players in the league. LaMelo Ball. The visibility, the cultural presence, the specific quality of being someone that casual sports fans and people who have never watched a full NBA game both know by name and face is a perfect fit for that environment. He is not just a basketball player at MSG. He is an event, and events at MSG generate the kind of energy that makes teams better because the players feel the weight of the moment and the weight becomes fuel rather than pressure. The defensive concern is genuine, and Shannon did not avoid it to his credit. LaMelo Ball has never been a defensive anchor. His effort on that end is real, but his physical limitations, the length and size deficits relative to players who are matched against him, mean that a backcourt that includes both LaMelo and Brunson creates matchup problems that opposing offenses will absolutely target. The question the Knicks have to answer is whether the offensive ceiling of that backcourt, the points generated, the advantages created, the defensive attention required, outweighs the defensive liabilities it introduces. The honest answer is that this is debatable, and that the answer depends significantly on how the rest of the roster is constructed around them to compensate for those liabilities. That is not a reason to not make the acquisition. It is a reason to make the acquisition and then build the roster to support it intelligently. Stephen A., and having made his admission, tried to end the segment by pivoting to a discussion of the Knicks' defensive concerns, which was both genuinely substantive and transparently strategic, since it moved the conversation from his being wrong to him making a sophisticated point about roster construction. Shannon saw it happening in real time and let it happen for about 90 seconds because Shannon is a generous television presence who understands when giving the other person space makes the moment more rather than less complete. And then he said, "I'm glad you're thinking about the Knicks defense. I just want to note that 2 weeks ago you weren't thinking about any of this because you said it would never happen. And now that it's happening, you have thoughts. I appreciate that, Stephen A." Looked at the camera. He smiled. The real smile. The one that acknowledges a well-made point rather than performing acknowledgement of one. He said, "Shannon." Shannon looked back, and the two of them sat for a moment in the specific mutual understanding of two people who have been doing this long enough to know that this is what it looks like when it goes right.